Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of Forge, recorder of videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to the Thursday edition of my bi-weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream of Crafting the Deep, which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Call from the Deep. If you're playing characters Gottwald, Max Sabra, or Toril, this video is not meant for you, but the rest of you are welcome, and there will be many spoilers. We stream our sessions live on YouTube every Friday. We can join our official Discord server with invite link into the description below if you'd like to support the channel. Please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson for our campaign. We use Roll20 for streaming. I use OBS Studio. So apparently Discord now, if you look at my little, I don't know, icon, person, avatar, whatever, in our Discord server, it actually shows up that I'm streaming to YouTube right now. I don't know how long it's been doing that. I just noticed that for some reason. Maybe it's been doing that the whole time. I'm not sure, but that's kind of a cool thing. It's like it, because I know it updates if I'm playing a game and I'm on Discord, and it's like, oh, Eric's playing Diablo 4, Baldur's Gate 3 or something. I didn't know it actually updated it when I was streaming. That's kind of spiff. Anyway, hope you all are having a glorious Thursday. Good evening to you, Bear, over in the Ook. Here in the USA, it is still technically morning, 11 a.m. Nate, please be careful driving. Morgan, good to see you. We need to specifically talk more about the wreck of the Golden Crown dungeon, which is the underwater dungeon crawl. We talked a little bit about, on Tuesday, I had to do a makeup stream because my Monday internet got completely borked. Hopefully internet will be fine today. It's just kind of a roll of the dice. We roll for, an encounter table every day. And if I get a nat 1, which happens a lot, then the internet just craps out. But we now have a hole in the yard representing the fiber line going into our yard at least, and hopefully progress is being made and we can jump onto that, because I am as sick of giving you updates on our internet woes as you all are of having to deal with them on your end, I'm sure. Also, I've received an important update, and that is that one of our players is not going to be here this session, or actually the next. In fact, yeah, he's literally going to be out all of December, which is Reese. So we're not going to have Toril for these sessions, which means I have an opportunity to kind of rebalance things, because there's a big difference between 5 players and 4 players and 3 players, which I've been privy to having to balance combat encounters around all those various player configurations. In this campaign particularly, if we're out 1 player, then you're only down to 3, and that can be a little bit rough. And this campaign, and particularly this area especially, seems to play a little bit fast and loose when it comes to overall balance level. There seems to be like kind of a little bit too many enemies, and yeah, I mean, the players they're level 4, so they're not just level 2, but they're also, this is an underwater, like the entire thing is a hazard, right? If you think about it that way, like everybody's got disadvantage, or they're having to deal with some kind of extra, penalties on movement or whatever else is going on, that's going to be a permanent debuff around a lot of the players. They're also under a time constraint because they're only going to be able to basically be down for an hour. And especially the one player who had the best ability to do underwater stuff is unfortunately not going to be here for it. So they were probably would have relied on Toril for quite a bit in here, and he's not going to be available. So something to keep in mind when balancing this out. I probably need to take out some of the enemies, reduce reinforcements, all that kind of thing, and make sure this is still going to be doable for our reduced player count. Nobody Super Shell is okay. Are we allowed to? Oh, sorry. No, this is their. No, it's nothing to do with that. That's sweet of you all to be concerned, but no, it's just they've got social encounter. It's December, right? It's a busy time. They've got some social encounters lined up. They actually have a vacation going this month, and it just happened to be a lot of stuff was falling on Fridays, so just busy scheduling things. And I was looking and seeing like what days we wanted to take off for the holidays too, which I've been talking about that with during the Monday updates for patrons, and just kind of seeing the last 2 years we've taken off the last 2 Fridays of December, which seems pretty normal for us, but also actual like Christmas Day and New Year's Eve or day have fallen closer to Friday. That's not quite the case this year. So I was thinking we would at least take 1 week off, but since Reese is going to be out anyway, I'm thinking we'll definitely take those 2 weeks off. So I'm thinking, unless I want to do like a one shot, I don't know. No, it's probably worth just taking the 2 weeks off. Honestly, I will probably have a normal, I don't know. I guess I haven't decided my full schedule yet. I know I will take for sure the full week of the 25th to the 29th off, and then I'll probably do some kind of like partial week, kind of like what I did for Thanksgiving maybe, for the week of the 18th. We'll probably plan on having a Patreon D&D game on the 21st, and then probably not doing a game on Friday, which means unfortunately we'll only do 2 sessions without him, which would be the 8th and the 15th. And I would love, just timing wise, to be able to wrap up this dungeon in those 2 sessions. So in order to do that, I think we have to way reduce the amount of combat, though, because that's going to be where a lot of the fight, a lot of the time sink is going to happen. So we also need to talk about Hoch Miraz down here, because I think that's something I really need to change in this adventure, something that I think has the potential to be a good idea, but the way it's written, the unfortunate thing is this was such a glowing review back when I reviewed it years ago, and I still think it's I fucking chose it to do our big, streaming games. So obviously I'm a big fan of this adventure, but now that I'm really doing the nitty gritty, room to room balancing of all the things, and like trying to figure out the story and all that, I am finding a lot of areas that need shoring up, which, that's any adventure I think is going to need that. But I will admit to maybe a few more than I expected in terms of having to fix things, because I'm already having to get these new maps in place and all the dynamic lighting and all the tokens, because it's a third-party adventure. So I'm already taking a big hit on that in terms of the amount of time I have to put into the adventure to get it into Roll20 and look visually acceptable to what we're used to, and then to have to make all these kind of story and balance adjustments on top of that, I will admit, is kind of a bummer there. So we'll need to reduce the amount of Sahuagin that we've got here on the front. Thankfully, this is actually the majority of the enemy denizens. We can still keep the 2 on the ballista. In fact, I think I'm trying to remember what information I told them back when they saw. Did I mention numbers on Sahuagin? I don't know if I did. I might have mentioned like half a dozen, but it doesn't necessarily mean there's gonna be half a dozen by the time they go back and get in there or anything. So I guess it's just up to me and how many they're going to be there at the time. In fact, they've long rested, right? They're going to be freshly long rested, thankfully, having long rested after doing the crash site. So all kinds of guard shifts and things could have changed here. So I'm thinking to cover this first area, we'll have still the 2 Sahuagin here, and then maybe we'll just leave 1 raider, a 3rd Sahuagin, and maybe 1 shark. So we'll take out a 4th Sahuagin and the 2nd Sahuagin raider, and maybe leave those as the reinforcements, and then we'll eliminate these final 2 or move them to a completely different area. I think that might be the best way to balance things, kind of reduce the amount of enemies in general. So we're going to put 5 and 6 just off the map for now on the GM layer, and then we're going to move the 4th Sahuagin and the 2nd raider to the next level, and then they will reappear as staggered reinforcements to this first fight, and then the 2nd shark will probably not be needed, but we'll see. I mean, maybe the players will come in blasting with some big high-level spells and manage to take people down. That's, the nice thing is I can always add reinforcements. It's pretty easy to increase the difficulty of a fight versus, I think, decreasing the difficulty of a fight. Because once you've shown your hand about how many monsters there are, then you kind of have to like fudge dice or kind of bullshit around to reduce an encounter in some way. So I think that'll work a little bit better for our initial encounter. And some of these guys are on different levels of the ship in terms of it's a 3D battlefield, which will be interesting. Not something we usually end up doing. I don't think it's worth putting any dynamic lighting on the ship itself, even though technically, if you were like down in the water, you wouldn't be able to swim up. But I can't imagine them going. I don't know. It just doesn't seem worth putting on the railing, for example. Now, this is the quarterdeck, and this is still an interior area here. I believe these stairs go up to a spot that's not mapped. It's just the top of the quarterdeck. So I'm going to obviously keep the walls here, but I don't think it's worth putting. I mean, I could sit there and put in like 2-way walls, but I don't think I need to do that. So that'll be initial fight, and then they can either go inside this cabin, which has been sealed off. This is an area that has been specifically chained Rusted chain wound around the handles prevents the doors from opening more than a crack. Peering through reveals a once lavish cabin. Opening the doors requires a successful strength check. Alternatively, you can just damage the chains, which at that point, if you're letting them damage it, I feel like there's no strength check required. Like either it's a check to get in, or it's just like, yeah, you spend a X amount of time getting in. If you're not in combat, like it doesn't matter. I guess if you're making a loud sound, then you could draw other enemies. Inside, there's a treasure chest. I think it's trapped. Let's see. One of the desks, or sorry, just in the thing, there's some treasure. One of the desks is empty. There's locked. The key is in area W2. The locked desk can be opened with a successful DC Dex check using Thieves' Tools. It's a magical poison needle trap, which apparently has survived being underwater all this time. Seems kind of weird. It also seems weird because the spellbook also has a glyph of warding on it, which I don't know. God. Again, level 4 seems a bit much. I guess the glyph is only that it restrains. It casts a spell from the spellbook, which just restrains the person who opens the spellbook. But then this freaking revenant like stands up and attacks the players, and this is where I kind of have a problem because I think this needs to be a social encounter instead of a huge ass fucking boss fight that's just going to happen that the players are completely unprepared for, and which is a total side thing. And yeah, he's a revenant with 5th level spell slots. So that's way too much. That's not going to happen. Ochmaraz. Characters with a past perception score of 15 or higher notice the pile of dirt. None of mine have that high of a perception. For once, this is the least perceptive and least vision. Vision? What am I trying to say? They don't have dark vision. Except for Gottwald, who did gain dark vision after leveling up. After attacking creatures who have stolen his possessions, Hoach flies from the shipwreck headed toward Purple Rocks to cover his Staff of the Magi, which has also been missing and is now in the hands of Deep Lord Ingramar. So I think instead of making this guy a super powerful undead who's perfectly capable of laying waste to everybody in this dungeon and then going off to basically destroy the entire bad guys by himself. This is me doing the Captain Picard meme. Instead, I think it's going to be a much weaker undead. What would be a weaker, maybe like a white or something? Somebody who's undead but can be trapped just by... In fact, what does a white stat block look like? Is that going to work better? Whites can't really be... Nope, not sight. My brain was like, let's do that. Whites aren't spellcasters. Ooh, Monster Manual Expanded has different whites, though. You seeing that? White Warlock, White Hexblade, White Champion. These are like CR3, I think. That's a better stat block. But I don't even necessarily want to make this a battle either. I just thought it would be kind of interesting, especially now that we're down a player character, that this guy could be an additional NPC who could join the party temporarily just for this dungeon. You know, maybe he's... I still like the idea of him having a spell book, so maybe he was the ship's deck wizard or whatever, and because of his wizardness, he was able to turn into undead. But he's not gonna be like a lich or anything. And the Revenant's too powerful. I think I can get away with using the white stat block though, right? What's a good white? What am I trying to think? Deathlock maybe. Deathlock white. Some kind of undead with maybe some like rudimentary spell casting. Yeah. Deathlock white. Maybe I'll have him look like a white, but have the stat block of the Deathlock. As Grave Bolts. Detect Magic, Disguise Self, Mage Armor, Fear, Hold Person, and Misty Step. For the Deathlock white. It's also actually a CR3. Is he corporeal? I guess he is. The image makes him look more like a ghost, but yeah, I might actually... Might actually use this one. But I might keep the token of the white, but use the Deathlock white, because then he's got some range attacks. I think that might be a little more appropriate. Okay. So why don't we change him? Let's see. Build him as a companion from Tasha's. Yeah. I do know what you're talking about. Specifically like NPC followers that have like very rudimentary PC powers. That's an idea, but I mean, he's specifically, you know, I want to keep the undead and I want to keep the spellcaster thing, and I think Deathlock White might actually fulfill my needs. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it looks corporeal. He doesn't have the incorporeal movement, does have sunlight sensitivity, and then purely cast with grave bolts. But I think it'd be fun. I need to make sure I don't start with combat. Maybe the white is aware that these Sawag, like he may like if the players break in here, he'll be like, "You're not the fish monsters or something. Who are you?" And like, you know, start off with a social encounter, and then the players can chat with him about how they stole. You know, he thought he was resting peace. What is his backstory? Maybe I can use some of that. But yeah, I'm thinking about using the death. Yeah, White Warlock's too powerful. Deathlock White, which means I'll need to actually bring you into this game. So that stat block's not in here. Let's see, where is your background? Hoch Maraz, dead for over a century. The corpse of the wizard has been lurking in the Golden Crown since it was wrecked in a violent storm. The ship went down. He was trapped in his chambers and drowned with the ship. Because the tragedy, Maraz's soul refused to pass into the afterlife. Everybody died. He remains in his watery grave, waiting a new foe to reveal themselves to him. Okay. So he's an undead who's been here this whole time, just chilling. Maybe he's been enjoying it. He's enjoying his existence, just having his stuff and just chilling down here in the water. You know, his area's all lived in. But then recently these fish folk came here, ransacked the place, trapped him in here. Maybe he even killed. I could even put like, you know, a dead Sahuagin body in here, so that they, you know, there was like a brief battle. Yeah, when the Sahuagin took up occupancy of the Golden Crown, they quickly discovered he was not to be disturbed and chained up his quarters so that he would remain where he was, which, although his stat block has him have, I know he doesn't have Misty Step anymore. Interesting. They got rid of that. Right? Mordenkainen's. He has Misty Step, and then, well, the updated Morden, the multiverse of monsters, whatever, no longer has Misty Step. Just has fear and hold person once per day. That's interesting. So unable to blink around, which that makes sense. Okay. But still, fear and hold person, very useful for fights. But, I mean, in general, just him sitting in the back, flinging grave bolts at people, like, is going to be super useful for the party in terms of a, like, NPC follower. So if that's the case, we might not have to change the balance too much. But there's no guarantee the players will open that door and actually find him. And then there's no guarantee they will end up allying with him either. Make him non-core. Oh, yeah, that's true. If he's more ghostly. The problem is if he's ghostly, then they would not. It wouldn't make any sense that he'd be trapped, right? Because he's literally physically trapped. He's not like spiritually trapped. White isn't here, so I gotta go delete. But so I think I'm gonna use the. I think the white token is gonna look better. But we'll use the. I think we'll just use the straight up Deathlock stat block. It looks like it's gonna work for me. And honestly, he can probably just auto attack with his grave bolts or something. But yeah, kind of a unique opportunity for a undead companion who would be really upset about all these fish folk, and he just wants to basically take his lair back. He's been ousted and left in this cabin. Yep, so that'll be his look, but he'll actually point to the Deathlock White. This was easier than I thought in figuring this out. And then name will be Coach Mraz. And I guess we can even keep the... Yeah, and I mean, between you and me, he might not ever use his hold person either. It would be... Like, I would not want to do that to my own boss, for example. But if the players find that, that's a balancing tool I can use. If the players find themselves in a real bad shape, somebody gets down from a crate or something, then he can go like, oh, and he summons some superpower, and then, yeah, hold person comes into play. 15 with mage armor, which I would give him. Hit point average is lower than the actual whites, 5d8 plus 15. Let's roll until we get higher than average, because he is a named guy. Lower, 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 lower. 43 hit points is what we're going with. 43, but I will give him 15 armor class for the mage armor. Okay, so now we should have a creature that looks like a white, but is in fact has the ability of a Deathlock white. I guess I could try to find a unique token would make it more interesting. The players may not instantly see that and be like, oh, enemy. So if I have some time. Oh, that could work. Token of the White Warlock. It looks very evil in that picture. So we could always picture a different... Could always use a slightly different token to represent our Hoach Mraz. He's got a Staff of the Magi, which was stolen, so he's upset about that. I believe they also stole his Cube of Force. Maybe he just kept some of his items like throughout the ship, and now he's upset that some of them are out there. But specifically, yeah, one was stolen from... I believe this curtain is supposed to be blocking the view. I don't know if I should use a door for that. That'd be an awkwardly large door. Different border on non-foes. Yeah. What do you do? What do you do with tokens that could go either way, though? Right? Like, it's kind of up to the player. They could just kill this guy if they wanted to. If you had somebody that was very zealous against undead, for example, they could be like, no, fuck this guy. He's an undead wizard. We should take him out. Then he would defend himself. Is it awkward to put a door that big? Let's see. So then he becomes a foe, suddenly. Curtain, that could also be a door. I think that's a funny fact, though. You, like, open the curtain and there's like, hey, there's an undead dude right here rising from the bed. This is supposed to be the bed, right? Let's see. GM, move. I guess it's the closest thing to the bed. The character's disturbed Mraz immediately attacks them without thought. We're changing that. If they're still in possession, he tracks them to the ends of the earth, recover them, opening their deaths may free him from undeath. So awakened Mraz becomes aware his staff is missing and blames the characters. DC 10 persuasion check to convince him that the party has not got it, in which case they might find themselves with a new ally here to recover his lost staff. The problem is his staff would not be... I mean, they don't get it till the end of the game. Like, well, right before the final dungeon, I guess, is the area they would find it in. But that could be an optional quest he gives. Is like, hey, the Sahuagin, took my Staff of the Magic, because this would be something the wizard would love to get her hands on. An amazing thing to have towards the end of the game. Spell absorption gives you all these spells you can cast. Like, holy shit, what a big upgrade. Yeah, and I can even show that and be like, ooh, this is like literally the side quest is just like, hey, hunt down my staff. Possessed by Deep Lord Ingramar, which you are... I think he's in the town before they get to the final dungeon, Purple Rocks, which is that considered the end of chapter 4? Yeah. So that's where they'll pick up that. Yeah, there he is. Deep Lord Ingramar. Voice the council acts as mouthpiece for Slarkrethel the Kraken. Cool. All right, so they won't know where to get it, but Hoach Mraz will basically be able to say, hey, I know these... I can kind of feel my Staff of the Magi. It's very far from here. They stole it, took it from me, and took it very far from here. Recover it. If you can recover it, it will be yours or something. Because it even says, unless she's been brought back from the dead, he bequeaths the Staff of the Magi to one of the characters. So he's fine with giving that to them. But especially that would be basically, I don't know if his reward, but his the players are already here to clear these guys off, and he would be like, hey, clear these guys off, and then let me reclaim my lair here. And he's not really doing anything evil. He's just kind of chilling out and, I don't know, enjoying his unlife to the fullest, I guess. Kind of changing his motivation around instead of being a raging revenant. He's just kind of a chill undead guy, but he's not a lich. I can't make him a lich because that would be way too powerful. Instead, I don't know. I mean, undead exists in multiple capacities, so yeah, he's kind of he's basically what he was in life in terms of his limiting abilities, but he's got that cool Grave Bolts auto attack. So hopefully the players think to do that. I'll need to mark this as locked. In terms of the treasure in here and the stuff, I guess it would be fun if his spell book was like laying out on the table, and then when somebody picked up the spell book, that's when he would like wake up and be like, hey, what, like, put that down or something, and he'll be ready with like an attack. And maybe I could even try something very tricky, which is to have him burst out, do one of his attacks, and then realize that they're not the Sahuagin, and then immediately stand down and be like, who are you people, or something. And then try to work out a thing from there. That might be able to work. That gets tricky. Once you start attacking the players, they would probably not reciprocate with social encounter, and yet my players have surprised me in all these different situations. They wanted to play ball with folks, so I'm hoping we can still make that happen. I would love to make his spell book magical. I think, I love giving characters signature things that they use, and that becomes part of their like kit. Hoping that would be part of the case with Toril getting that Fisher's Spear, which he's only vaguely remembered that he has. And I would love to give the wizard a cool spell book, because this is a great opportunity to give her one, which is Hoch Miraz's spell book, which isn't anything magical about it. It contains Stone Shape, Fabricate, and Conjure Elemental, which are all great spells, but it's a while before the player even gains access to higher level spells that they can cast those. But I would like to make this an actual legit magic item. I was looking up at the compendium to see, and maybe you all have some ideas about what magical spell books look like. Obviously, it's going to be an enduring spell book at the very least, which is just a common magic item that is... the spellbook can't be damaged by fire or immersed in water. In addition, the spellbook doesn't deteriorate with age, because that just needs to happen, because it's been sitting, presumably at the bottom of the ocean for, not the bottom of the ocean, but, 70 feet below the surface for 100 years, whatever it's been. So it's got to be a magic spellbook in some way. But I was hoping to have it be some kind of cool magic item with some extra perks. I love the idea of having it be maybe semi-sentient, which I did look up, and apparently one of the new wizards from Tasha's, I guess that's not too new at this point, the Order of the Scribes actually has an awakened spellbook ability, so I was looking at that for inspiration to see, if that had some cool abilities. It's okay, I guess. I mean, it's their second level signature feature, so it's not like super powerful, but basically they can change the damage type with another type in the spellbook. She already uses Chromatic Orb, so I'm not sure. I guess you could cast, I don't know, at higher levels you could do like Fireball as a cold thing or something like that. Could be, that could be pretty interesting. The ladder spell must be the same level as the spell slot you expend. So yeah, I mean that's kind of interesting. And then when you cast a wizard spell as a ritual, you can use the spell's normal casting time rather than adding 10 minutes to it. That actually sounds really dangerous for the DM, because suddenly you can cast shit like Leomund's Tiny Hut, or, maybe Conjure Elemental. Does that take 10 minutes? 1 minute. Oh, that's not a ritual, though, so that actually doesn't count. That's not a ritual spell. But Leomund's Tiny Hut is the one I thought of, where it's like, oh, you can't cast this in combat is the only saving grace because it takes 10 minutes to cast it. Well, now it's like you can use the spell's normal casting time, which seems dangerous. So yeah, I don't know how good of that ability is. I may just have to come up with something my own in terms of what are some cool spellbook abilities. Maybe just something like a more powerful Pearl of Power where you can get more spell slots from it, or include spells you can cast a certain amount of times a day, or maybe I'll look at like sorcery abilities. Maybe you can upcast, a spell or do something along those lines where I can make some certain things there. And maybe even one of those things where you can unlock abilities as you level up. I always have some fun with that stuff as well. It's funny that Heather's character got a magic book in the last campaign, despite actually being a fucking barbarian character, who still benefited from getting a legendary artifact level book. I don't necessarily want to give her an artifact level item here, but I just think this dude's 100-year-old spell book, could have some kind of extra magic item features on it, which would be kind of fun. And then she would have the ongoing quest to like, hey, also get the Staff of the Magi, which would be incredibly powerful. I do plan on also giving them the, what is it called? Force Cube of Force, something. But that's a little bit deeper into this dungeon. It's in a slightly different area, I believe. There is a chest full of potions in here. This is is this the trapped chest? Let's see. Plunder the golden chandelier, discovers the magic spell book. This is in the quarter. This is the left side of the map, I guess. Score of 20 or higher. Notice a locked box beneath the bed. The key is fucking. These skill checks are so high. Right, pillows the bed. Okay, and then you've got potions inside there. So he would have some potions in with him as well. Potion of Vitality, Greater Healing, and Mind Reading. So there's some good loot in here. And frankly, I don't want them to fight this character. I would love for them to have this guy be an ally. And maybe I can... Yeah, maybe there's... I can... Is it... Do you think it's worth putting a dead Sahuagin, like, floating in here? Or would he have, like, eaten it already? Does he eat things? He's undead. I don't think he needs to eat. He's not a ghoul. I'm undead. I'm not a ghoul. Actually, I don't know what kind of accent that Kalashite would have. Doesn't require air, food, drink, or sleep. So, yeah, he wouldn't be eating them. I don't know if he would just not... I guess if he's trapped in here, he wouldn't be able to do anything with the body. So the body would just be rotting in here, which would be pretty gross. But yeah, maybe we'll do something like that to denote that there's something dangerous in here. Take out that and just put an X maybe on him. Just have him be like right there. So then when they open the door, they see like a dead Sahuagin and then like this weird curtain thing going on here. But like this all looks like more lived in, kind of, but it's still like all old and rotted. So yeah, hopefully we can turn this into a social encounter. And even if we can't, I've way diminished this guy's stat block to where he's basically he is a Deathlock White. But yeah, I'm hoping we can make it work. Free +1 level upcast once per day. Once per day per proficiency. Scales with level that way. Yeah, something like that, I think. Frey could literally do anything by the end of the campaign. Yeah, her powers were nuts. One of the reasons I kind of backed away from doing big secret powers in this one was because the secret things were crazy. They were imbalanced. That was all purposely imbalanced, but yeah, it was nuts. And I realized that's partly me. I just love magic items. I love loot. I love giving out, cool things for my players to do. But on the other hand, I have to accept the consequences that, oh shit, my players are gonna be able to punch way above their weight class because of all these magic items. So I feel like I've been a little bit stingier in this campaign, to where they are 4th level right now. And I think, gosh, what are we looking at in terms of magic items? Right now, between the 4 of them, there are only 3 attuned items, which is a Cloak of Protection, Twirl's Fisher Hook, and Savra's Slippers of Spider Climbing, which that was only part of a random loot roll that they just rolled really well on. Mac does have a +1 bow in terms of another weapon, so I guess 2 of the 4 have magical weapons by now. But I still think that's pretty right. I don't know. I know I give too many magic items. I like it. And I'm fixing to give one now. Like, I just got to figure it out, balance it well enough. I'm going to look at other abilities like sorcery points and Pearl of Power and all that and just see what we're looking at. Give it a personality, let it cast silence if it gets angry at whoever uses it. I mentioned earlier in this campaign that I had recently watched Hocus Pocus 2, I guess, which has that spell book as obviously Necronomicon is from Evil Dead as a thing too. But like, yeah, the idea of a spell book that doesn't necessarily communicate with you, but it's still like sentient, like a dog, I guess, where it you can feel like emotion coming off of it and it still feels, but it can't really like communicate or have higher level of thinking. Is kind of what I'm picturing for this kind of spell book. And I like the idea that it has like a single eye in terms of like a mouth or something, but just like an eye that can like emote in some way. But yeah, I like the idea of having some kind of sentient, which is why I was looking at the ability of the Awakened spellbook for the Scribe, but it doesn't really do anything with it until you get to 6th level, and then you can manifest it as another thing, and then you can cast spells from it. None of this actually sounds like something I want to roll with, so I probably won't end up using too much of that ability. But yeah, just I think it'd be fun to have, if anything, just for a roleplay tool. I think is the best way to do it, and maybe even that's the excuse of why Hochmraz is okay with giving up his spellbook, because he's like, it's a pain in the ass. It hasn't liked me ever since I went undead. It seems to really like you. Just go ahead and take it, but help me like reclaim the ship, drive off these interlopers, and then I will, I don't know. I'll give you more treasure. He's got more treasure hidden in this room. He's got a whole treasure case. Maybe this treasure pile of potions and things he can reveal to the players. And he's got another, he can kind of be kind of a dick and be like, I've got another big treasure I can give you, my staff. But then he'll reveal, and maybe he doesn't know the context, but he will reveal that like, oh shit, my staff's gone, but somehow they'll know that like it got spirited away and taken by somebody. But I like the idea of putting that as a official like side quest that the players have, which is, hey, Hochmraz told you his super powerful Staff of the Magi, which is a legit amazingly powerful, like just one of the best things you can get for a wizard, is out there. The players, there's no chance of them missing it though in terms of a side quest, other than like one of the villains toward the end of the game has it, so they'll have to get it from him. But essentially the side quest is just a tease to say, hey, this amazing item is out there, and then you can get it at some point. But I like the idea of including that as an official quest log, I guess. So that's going to be the plan with Hochmraz, I think. Hopefully, and he can even, he'll say, hey, help me take back, and it's not just like, go do this, it's like, I will come assist you to do this, which is maybe not something I would have done normally, except because Reese isn't going to be here with Toril. Then that allows the players to get back up to a kind of a 4th level person who, frankly, is going to be very easy for me, the DM, to run, because I can just have him auto-attacking using the Gravebolt's ability. +5, range 60 feet. He can do it twice, which actually I may not let him do because that makes him more powerful than the PCs, and I don't want to overshine them, so maybe he just does one of these once. Or if he's in melee, he can do his life drain attack. And if things get really tits up with this battle, then he can try to cast Fear or Hold Person. And maybe he can use Detect Magic at some point. I don't know. That would come in handy. In terms of the rest of the dungeon denizens that will need to rebalance, I like the eel. It's pretty strong. I might remove the octopus. Unfortunately, just most of these rooms are empty. Yeah, lightning eel is pretty cool. Is it too strong? CR3. It's got 2 bite attacks, which are fucking nasty. 14 average damage, and then its lightning jolt deals basically a con save for 3d8 lightning damage to everyone around. That needs double brackets, or it's not going to roll correctly. Whoops, 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 whoops. What did I do? There we go. All right, make sure that shows up correctly. There we go. All right, that's not too bad of damage, though. And it's just a total random, like, you open a door and there's a monster in there. There's nothing in any of these side rooms. There's the treasure up here, but the boss has the key, or they could just break down the door. And they can also just go to the lower level, which here's where we have a major problem. We can talk about the boss fight, and we can talk about the Marrow over here. The designer threw in 3 Marrow who guard this. I still gotta find those tokens. Who guard a bunch of prisoners in here. Prisoners of the Sahuagin. I'm probably going to make them all people from the village. I think that'd be the simplest things for story. That's true. Detect magic when you can't find a staff. That's a good one. It's a pretty good haul for level 4. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. What about a sentient fish as a spell? Like, remembers all the spells to teach you the formula. Well, the problem is they're not going to be in the water that long. I was thinking about having it be a scaly spell book where it's maybe like made from a lizard or something, and that's why it has like affinity for Savra. I think could be an interesting angle. But I think Marrow are really strong, and the fact that the designer put 3 of them down here to like guard this area seems crazy to me. So I was gonna put 1 Marrow down here as kind of like another, I don't know, major mini boss fight, and then 2 Sawagans just with it. Go ahead and roll for hit points for these creatures. I rolled for crap hit points. All right. That does make things a little bit awkward because this area is just open to the water, so presumably they would join in. You know, if there was like a fight up here, something doesn't really make sense that they wouldn't be in the fight, but whatever. We'll try to make it work. The ship's pretty big, I guess, and sound does travel through water very well. In terms of so we'll keep the lightning eel. There's a swarm of quippers. I might get rid of that to open the treasure room and just find a bunch of fish in here, like stuck in this room. Just seems like there's too many battles in here, right? We've got this big battle with the Sahuagin here. Hopefully, Hochmaraz will not be a fight. As written, there's a giant lightning eel in one room, randomly with no treasure. There's a giant octopus in one room, randomly with no treasure. There's a swarm of quippers guarding the treasure room, which is already locked and requires the key from the boss or a check to get inside. There's the boss, who is guarded by a door, which is actually a mimic, which is kind of crazy. And then there are 3 Marrow on the bottom of the ship. So all of that is a fuck ton of combat for a level 4 dungeon, I think. I feel like I can be half afraid it's time for a bag of tricks. How many times can I give him a bag of tricks? He's got his own pet this time because he loved his bag of tricks so much in the last campaign. That's why he literally chose a pet class for this campaign, and more power to him. They will have his Drake Warden with him. So automatically I'm rebalancing things by reducing the number of Sahuagin on the top, and I'm removing 2 of the Marrow and replacing them with just regular Sahuagin for the bottom level. I'm thinking I need to remove at least 1 of these 3 creatures. And I guess I'll let you all vote on which one I should remove. The swarm of quippers who are guarding the treasure room. I think I mentioned the fact that they're like fed by the Sahuagin to guard that room. Entice from quippers remain in this room by feeding them regularly. The fish attack any non-Sahuagin that enters. Or the giant lightning eel, which seems like a pretty fun stat block. It's just hiding here in the rocks, and really I can have it, I guess, ambush them anywhere. Or a giant octopus who's hanging out just in this kitchen area. I'm kind of tempted to do the octopus, but yeah, I don't know. In fact, we'll put up a little poll real quick. Which monster to remove? This is basically for balancing purposes, and B, for time purposes. I think it's just too many, and pacing, I guess. All right, so I've started a poll, but I think there's too many battles here. Even if the players were at full party strength, and they're not, they're going to be reduced down a player. Hopefully they have Hochmaraz as an ally, but even so, you know, no NPC should be close to a player's power level. So looking to see which one of those, at least on this level, I should remove. And then while you're doing that, and by the way, these 2 Sahuagin, would join the fight up front, but they would be slightly staggered. And maybe they would never join. If the players have a struggle with this initial fight, you know, then these reinforcements will not join. I'll probably stagger them for like a round or 2, to where these 2 will come up to investigate like what's going on. So these 2 will not be in W5. They will either join the fight to W4 within a round or 2, or I will probably not use them at all, frankly. But I'm planning on removing 1 of the other 3 creatures that are in this area. Obviously, we're going to keep the boss. We're going to keep the Sahuagin Baron. He is currently, you know, carving out like a Mind Flayer statue. I think that's part of his deal. What is this, W11? Baron's quarters. The cabinet is adorned with the skulls of various beasts and humanoids. The center of the chamber is a chunk of decaying wood, which has been carved into the figure of some indescribable alien horror. Your minds yield up simultaneously images of a humanoid octopus, a tentacled beast of the depths, and a monstrous brain. Karg, the Sahuagin Baron, is here sculpting the decaying mast in a frenzy. His four muscular arms work at speed upon the carving, his eyes as black as the ocean depths. Yeah, so he is, unfortunately, there's no real notes on role-play anything. I think he's a complete fanatic from the Mind Flayers. He's been corrupted, and thus has corrupted all of his little followers, and is building this thing. I think we may need to remove the Mimic Door thing. I remember really tying myself in a knots on Tuesday's crafting stream, because, like, how does it work in context of this fight? Like, it even says, like, you're supposed to open this door and find him whittling away and working, but obviously if the players have a fight right here with a door mimic, sorry, I'm kind of blocking the view with my overlay, then there's no way that Karg wouldn't join the fight, but then, like, he's stuck behind the mimic. Like, it just gets really awkward from a fight standpoint. And again, now with the players having all these battles and being reduced to player, I don't know, it feels like it's too much. You know what I could do is, now that I think about it, you could move the door mimic to the treasure chamber. So I could actually, we could remove the swarm of quippers or put them somewhere else, wherever we want. In fact, that might be a more interesting minion than him calling the sharks. Have just a swarm in the room with him. And then we move this door mimic to that door, and maybe the key then is feeding the door a fish, rather than a key, right? Does that seem better? So instead of having it be the door to the boss, that way the mimic becomes a separate thing they have to deal with. Okay. I think that's going to work better. And then we can decide if we want to actually use the swarm somewhere else. I think I'm liking this thought process. So the mimic door, which I'm using the token for a spitting mimic just because it looks better than a regular mimic for this purpose, but it's still just the mimic stat block. But what if we move the door up here? And that's how, I mean, if they've got a fucking mimic door, maybe they'll use that to lock up the treasure room. Okay. So I think that actually solves my problem there, which is the mimic door, the weird timing with it and the boss fight. So we'll move that up there. And maybe I'll have, maybe they can get a note somewhere. Oh, notes don't make sense in Underwater Dungeon. Maybe it's, I guess maybe it's scrawled on the wall with, like, a dagger or something, like, etched into the walls. Like, fish is the key or something, like, right next to this door. That could be good. Because, like, the Sahuagin themselves have to remind themselves, like, hey, you have to, this door is actually a mimic. I think I like that too. And then it can be more of an environmental puzzle instead of a combat fight, where if they give this, you know, they gently put a door up to, like, a little, a fish up to the keyhole, then they see teeth emerge, you know, up as part of the door and eat the fish, and then it slowly, like, you know, goes open for, you know, maybe just like a minute or two, and then it will slam shut again, which could be fun if there was somebody still inside and they have to deal with that again. And I could make it so, like, all right, you gotta look for a fish. And then maybe when they see the fish, I don't know, I could put a school of fish somewhere, and that could lead them to one of the other fights if they haven't already done a fight. Or maybe one of the fights will stir up some fish or something and make it so you can't just, like, you know, grab a fish nearby. Maybe there's a fish with the boss. That's my way of, like, giving them the key, making sure they have to take out the boss first and then doing that. I'm liking all these ideas. Okay, people definitely want to keep the eel. I agree. Yeah, I think Giant Octopus is going to go. As cool as octopi are, we've got plenty of tentacle creatures in this campaign. And I think there's plenty of creatures in general. So I think I'll leave them on the map. We'll throw them down here. And I don't think we'll end up having to use you. And the eel we could move around. Like whatever door the players end up, although he's a large creature, that's actually probably the best spot he's going to fit in. But I could see me like ambushing them with whatever side. Does he ambush? This guy does have good stealth, right? Yeah, passive perception of 15 or higher. We'll see it. Otherwise, it surprises the characters when it attacks. Which I would use its surprise round to do its electrical field thing, I think. But yeah, what do we think? A Mimic as the door up there. Eel, kind of whichever one of these rooms. We'll have a little note up there that says like fish. Fish is the key or something, which they'll be very confused about what the hell that means. And then we can put the swarm of quippers, maybe with the boss. That might be too much. Maybe it summons the fish in here. Maybe I could just put the fish where the octopus was. So they still have a lot of battles in here. I still feel like that's too many things going on, though. And then the sharks are here just because I figured the boss... So this way, they'll still end up opening the door, seeing the boss doing a crazy thing. He'll stand up and then do his attack. And then what I would like to do is not have the players fight this guy by himself. He's strong. I mean, he's got 89 hit points, which is huge. And he's got 3 attacks. Maybe he's... Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's strong enough not to have any other battles. I guess we'll kind of see how the dungeon's going and how the battles are going, I think. And I've got it on the GM layer that there's some shark allies that he can call because they have that shark telepathy ability that would be able to swarm in from some direction. In case he's getting swarmed or locked down or something, then he's got some allies. But if he's like just ripping apart players, then maybe we'll keep him by himself. The tricky thing is once I introduce allies to the mix, I can't just take them away very quickly. He's got to be able to do with those. But I figure some reef sharks, sorry, not hunter sharks, reef sharks would be the best thing to do. They're not that powerful, and they don't add a whole lot of hit points to the fights. The quippers, though, I think are pretty strong because as a swarm, I believe they have damage resistance. Yes, they do. Their bite attack is very powerful, 4d6 piercing. I think swarms are always, God, they have blood frenzy too, are always stronger than I'm prepared for and the players are prepared for. So I think that's the one I'm probably most worried about. So I think we may put them on the GM layer as well. And yeah, we'll see if we end up using them or not. I think we'll probably pull the trigger on the eel for their big, like, just random monster side encounter. I like the idea of the Mimic being the guard for the treasure chests up here. Karg will either be alone or can call some hunter shark allies. And then when they finally make it to the bottom, I still have a Marrow there, but hopefully one Marrow isn't the end of the world for them to deal with. Is a CR2. He's got, a third of the hit points as the boss, and he only has 2 attacks. So definitely stronger than any of the Sahuagin in here, but not as strong as the boss. So that feels kind of appropriate, I guess. And then just 2 random Sahuagin down here. And then they find that Shield of Farsight, which is how the Mind Flayers are able to corrupt the Sahuagin. Unfortunately, it doesn't really have good stat blocks. I feel like this could have been a really interesting, one ring tile type thing where it's powerful, but it can also corrupt the user. And that's literally what it's been doing to the Sahuagin. It says this: the characters could take the shield, which is being used to control the Sahuagin. If they do, Karg the Baron does anything to get it back. The shield might help the characters defeat the Sahuagin and begin to manipulate the party or blast the characters to assist the Sahuagin. Those are good ideas, but I feel like I need more rules for that. It just mentions the Mind Flayer can use its Mind Blast action as though it were standing behind the shield. But then it doesn't say how often. Mind Flayers can get it on recharge, right? So presumably they could Mind Blast left and right, which is obviously super imbalanced if you have an item that can do that. So there has to be some kind of weird context there. I don't even know if I want to give my players that ability. Even if it has a downside, I don't know if I want to give them ability. Like an AoE cone, 60-foot cone with a DC 50 intelligence saving throw that has a chance to stun. I don't think you can put that in the hands of the players. Like, holy shit. That's, even if it was like a once per day thing and you had to roll, like maybe you had to make the save yourself or something, but still, that is just devastatingly powerful. But I do like the idea of the shield doing it to the players. But I mean, the designer does say like, hey, they could use it. Might help the characters defeat the Sahuagin. I don't know why, unless it feels like it could corrupt the players. But that's usually like that's the role play side of things. So I don't know. I've got mixed feelings of that. I don't think we're gonna get to that with tomorrow's session. I think we'll have our hands full doing the top half of the dungeon. Hopefully we can get through the Sahuagin fight and Hoach Miraz and at least one or two other encounters, frankly. And then if we do that, then we can wrap up, I think, the second half of it in the following week and hopefully do the boss and then the lower half. And I think we can do this all in 2 sessions. But at that point, I will have at least more time to think about how I want to do. I needed to get Hoach Miraz lined up for this session, which I think we did. But the shield, I'm not sure of if I want to even make that an item or just make that a thing that the... I mean, I could frankly not make it a shield. I could make it a just thing, like a, I don't know, some corrupting artifact thing so that they don't think it's an item. Instead, it's a thing they have to destroy. And when they open it, it'll do its Mind Blast attack. And maybe it will give its... and I haven't decided also if I want the boss to trigger a cutscene or if I want the Shield of Farsight to trigger the cutscene where they will get the information for like, hey, all hands on deck, we're attacking Neverwinter, forces are being sent out, blah, blah, blah. I haven't quite determined if that's which area that's going to happen at. We'll figure that out. All right. For now, I think that is going to do it for this Thursday edition of Crafting the Deep. If you enjoy the content, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Stan, Brandon, Xenocider, David, Eclectic, Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Corey, Big Nut, John F., John L., Scott, Eric, Tyler, Nathan, Kemp, Crystal, Counselor, Andrew, Daryl, the Reldrin, Captain Woody 79, Stephanie, Andy, Patrick, Jason C., Jason T., and Ishmael. And gold patrons, RPG, Papercrafts, Free Boy, and Yuma, Lizard Lounge, Sam, Lippy Spuds, Jerome, Nathan, Fast, Torres, Scott, Rivers, Carolyn, Jerry, and Thomas. Thank you all very much for your support. I will see you for D&D tomorrow.